Hello and welcome to another episode of Miss Chris Knits. I'm Miss Chris and I live in Japan. I knit and crochet pretty much interchangeably depending on how I'm feeling that particular week. I have a finished object to show off today, and after I show off my finished object, I am excited to tell you another story. This story will be a continuation of the story last week. Specifically, what happened to Susano. No, to Susano. No. I don't know, Japanese is hard. But I'm going to tell you the story anyway. So if that's something that you're interested in, please stick around, subscribe, and I would love to hear anything from you guys. Start off with the project of the day, my finished project. So it's a shirt. I feel like just showing it to you doesn't do it quite justice. So I'm going to go put it on and be right back. So I think this came out quite well. It was a particular fashion that was very fashionable in the 90s. And I made it without a pattern. At this point, I've been crocheting for 3 or 4 years now. So I just kind of went on feel. And it came out to be quite cute. It's quite wide here, which is what it's supposed to be. You're supposed to wear it with quite a thin other piece, like a thin underlay, so that it kind of looks like a cupcake dancing on top. I think I pretty much nailed it, honestly. So let's take a look at the project I'm working on, and I'll tell you a story. Now, the project that I'm working on right now is something that some of you might remember from several months back. I haven't put any effort into completing it in several months. But I've got a new lease on life, and I'm trying my best. So I've returned to my skirt project, where the skirt will be kind of bunched up, and it'll kind of look like that, kind of pleated. But what that means is there is a lot of work to be done. Dropped my crochet hook. I'm using a size 5.5 crochet hook, and I am doing this in double crochet. All right, so I'll lower this a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. It's quite soothing to watch, I've been told. So I will unlock my little stitch holder and get started. So last week I told you the story of Amaterasu, who after her brother threw a huge fit, hid herself away in a cave and had to be ushered out. All the gods had to work together to get her out of that cave. And the reason that is because Susano had thrown a fit and destroyed quite a bit of heaven, including Amaterasu's personal palaces and personal gardens, and killed her personal maid. Wow. That was some heinous stuff. Now, who is Susano? No. Susano? Susano. Susano. Who is Susano? Well, he is the storm god that was born out of the two main creators, Izanagi and only Izanagi. He was not born out of Izanami. He was only born out of Izanagi. Born out of his nose. His nose! He washed his nose and a kid fell out. Like, what? Oh my god. Anyway, so he was the third born This would all make a lot more sense if you watch my other videos about the history of this god's family. So, Izanagi washed his face. Amaterasu, the sun god, came out of one eye. Tsukuyomi, the moon god, came out of another eye. Susanoo come out of his nose. It's weird. But anyway, so he's the third born. And so they're in heaven, and it's like, who's going to be in charge of heaven? Well, obviously the firstborn. No doubt. No doubt about that. Now, who is Amaterasu going to marry? Is she going to marry her first brother or her second? And Amaterasu chose to marry the moon instead of the sea and storm god, who was very volatile and angry, whereas the moon was very tranquil and accepting and quite lovely. So Susano has been rejected as suitor. He has been rejected as ruler of the heavens, and he has been told that he is going to now rule over the humans. So he threw a fit. He's a storm god. He was like a tornado. He was like a typhoon. He was like a tsunami. He was just a hurricane of death and destruction over the heavens, which is what chased Amaterasu away. Amaterasu, the sun goddess, being out of heaven, led to a very dark and cold period in the history of the world, the Ice Age. Yep, that's right. He caused the Ice Age. But who can really blame him? He's a volatile spirit. He is a storm. He's a storm, man. What are you going to do? So, what he did is get kicked out of heaven. He tried to apologize to his sister. His sister was really suspicious of the whole situation. There was another confrontation, and he was kicked out of heaven. So, what does he do? He's on Earth. He doesn't want to be on Earth. He doesn't want anything to do with humans. He's like, why should the gods even bother with humans? We shouldn't have anything to do with them. Until he hears an old woman crying. An old woman crying? Well, that's interesting. Let's go see what's going on. And the old woman is crying, "Oh, woe is me! Oh, woe is me! My 8th daughter is going to die this very evening. Oh, woe is me!" His 8th daughter's gonna die this evening? What's going on? So Susanoo is a god and a deity, and he's just like, hey, tell me what's going on. And she's like, "Oh, great god Susanoo, my village has been troubled this many years by a great dragon, a many-headed serpentine dragon, and every year he comes to collect one of the most beautiful villagers as his tribute. And every year, for the last 8 years, he has chosen one of my daughters. And this year, he will choose my youngest daughter, my last child, for I can have no more, as I am an old woman." And Susanoo was like, wait, there's a dragon and a pretty lady? So he decides he's going to help this old lady, so he goes with her, and they come up with a plan. A daring plan, if you will. An exciting plan. Woo! Would a storm god go down lightly? We don't think so. Susanoo had a sword, he had his wits, and he had some magic powers. So he decided, we know what day the the dragon's going to come down the mountain and eat this princess. What is going on? Please ignore the weird thing that just occurred. It's not better. Let's ignore it. Anyway, so They know what day the dragon is coming. So they say, okay, so let's get a giant bottle of sake. Sake is in Japan called Nihonshu, and it is very potent rice wine. And so they got a giant barrel of this stuff, because this is a really big dragon. And then Susanoo cursed it to be poisonous. Then I've said then like 8 times. Next, the dragon came down out of the mountain in order to get his snack of a beautiful princess, as was his usual doing when once a year he came down the mountain. But this time he comes down the mountain looking for a beautiful princess, and he first thing he sees is this giant container of alcohol. Well, I'll tell you what. Free alcohol. Who turns that down? Nobody. Certainly not a dragon with many heads. So he decides that, I'm going to get drunk first. We're going to make this a party. So he drinks all of the poisoned sake. All of it. And he goes, he gets drunk, he gets dancing. His 8 heads are all twisting and turning. And, he gets the princess, he's gathered up the princess in his coils, but he's not eating her because he's like, I don't feel good. And he usually eats the princess up in the mountain anyway, but he doesn't feel well enough to travel. So he just decides, I'm going to hold the princess in my scales and I'm going to take a nap and I'm going to sleep off this hangover, right? Who hasn't been there? So he decides to sleep off his hangover, but Susanoo, in the midst of this, has been waiting for the dragon to go to sleep. The first thing he does is save the beautiful princess. And the next thing he does is start to attack the dragon. And he fights the dragon, cutting off one head after another, because the dragon has been slowed down by the booze and poison. And so he is able to easily outmaneuver and defeat this hideous beast. And then, so finally he defeats this dragon. Or something. He defeats this dragon. It's more like a serpent dragon, like an Asian dragon. It's not so much like an English dragon. It's like a slithering bunch of snakes that all are one thing. It's very weird when you see it. They have plays about it and stuff. It's very weird when you see it. Because you're like, is that a dragon? Or 8 snakes that just happen to touch each other a lot? I don't know. So he kills it. He cut off all the heads. Final head passes out. Boom! Sword right in the skull. His sword gets a cool name like Dragon Slayer or whatever. And he decides, you know what? The humans really do need a protector on Earth. So I'm going to stay here and I'm going to bring down my son. And if the humans give us proper tribute, we're going to help them out. They obviously need help. They can't take care of dragons and demons by themselves. You gotta call on the gods for that. And so he gave his blessing upon the village so that the fishermen would have calm seas and there would not be destroyed and there would be no tsunamis in the village. And he took his leave, thus ending the story of Susanoo versus the dragon. So I hope you enjoyed my tale of excitement today. I'm going to continue telling you these mythological tales, old folk tales from Japan. I might be talking about certain demons that exist in Japan. I might even bring up some Filipino demons. I like telling stories, and I hope you like listening to stories. while watching somebody crochet, because that is what my channel is kind of turning into. If that's something that you're interested in, I'm going to give you another call to action, which is to subscribe and hit that bell icon, man. You can see me here every Monday. Have a nice day.